Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Ray Petree. I'm a columnist for the Sportster and the Augusta Free Press, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson to my Tully Blanchard, JDO. How's it going, Jordan?
Going great, man. Going good.
We had some audio issues before we got on, got them fixed.
Yeah, just a little
Uh,
bit.
ready to talk today about a couple things. But first, this show is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music if you don't want to necessarily watch the video on YouTube. So we hope you guys check that out. You can follow me on TikTok, Ray_Petrie, where I make shorts about wrestling and sometimes the NBA. And before we get into this, please like the video, comment about any of the topics that we discussed today. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer, we'd be happy to on next week's episode. And subscribe to the channel. We really want to thank you guys for all your support. We've had a lot of great videos over the last few weeks that have had a lot of success, relatively speaking, to our channel. And we want to thank you guys so much for your support. Um, but without further ado, let's get into it. We had an idea of what we're going to talk about this week, and then Friday we heard news of another string of WWE releases. We talked about this before, these quarterly releases, because they have these quarterly evaluations with the wrestlers. And at this juncture, it looks like about is it 17 wrestlers were released on Friday, and we've learned about them, over the course of the weekend. We've heard some more releases. Um, let's get into the main roster ones. Shayna Baszler, Katana Chance, and Caden Carter, Dakota Kai, Braun Strowman, and Shotzi. This is tough, man. Some of these wrestlers are fan favorites. Some of them have, in the case of Braun Strowman, a former world champion who's been released before and was brought back.
Yeah.
Which of these releases shocked you the most, man?
Um, I think definitely Braun Strowman, simply because he was just most recently in a feud with Jacob Fatu, who is now the U.S. champion and has really, um, you know, been doing a lot of big things as of late. And his thing with Strowman was kind of his first real singles thing without um, Solo really being involved. So that was kind of a big step for him. And then Braun also did stuff with Bronson Reed, who I think was in line for a pretty big push before he got hurt. So it was a little shocking to see him get released. And I think Dakota Kai, simply because she's pretty popular with with the fans both in the arenas and online. Um, and she also was the one she wrestled in the final for the women's intercontinental title against Lara Valkyria. I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
So that's a big thing for her. And so yeah, it was those two I think were the most surprising to me. The other ones I wasn't as surprised simply because they really weren't doing anything with them. Um, but yeah, I think those two would definitely be the ones that shocked me.
Yeah, Katana Chance and Caden Carter, former NXT Women Tag Team Champions, who parlayed that into main roster tag team success. And we're really one of the very few tag teams in the women's division that were organically a tag team that were kind of paired together. So that's odd to me, but not surprising. Shayna Baszler, not shocking, but from all reports that we've been hearing, is that recently she's become a trainer in NXT and was helping develop talent down there. So, I feel like she's someone who one day as an agent could be really helpful for a lot of women's wrestlers, but obviously she's not with the company anymore. Yeah, and to your point, Dakota Kai, fan favorite, someone that when they announce these mid card women's tag team or women's titles, I'm sorry, singles titles, we would have pegged her as a mid card champion, someone who would really fit in that role well in that position, and she's gone. Shotzi, same boat, fan favorite, someone who you'd think would be a great mid card champion, and she's gone.
I think
Strowman, no, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, to me, it feels like the WWE kind of really showed that they don't really care about the women's titles, like the tag titles, the mid card titles, because I mean, Caden Carter and Ton Chance, they were really the only women's tag team that actually like was a legit like an established tag team.
Mhm.
They were really the only ones. All all they really are now is just the tag team titles. I mean, are just ways to get feuds started, like they did at WrestleMania. I mean, they basically hot potatoed them back and forth for Becky to be able to turn heel, like on Lyra. So that didn't really make sense to me. And then like yeah, like Shayna Baszler, Dakota Kai, Shotzi, all people who could contend for the women's United States and then the women's Intercontinental titles, and they released them. So yeah, that really kind of shows me that they don't really have any plans to invest in those titles pretty heavily.
Yeah, I mean, with this LFG thing, I know we saw, I guess it was last week, The Undertaker appeared on NXT with some of his students at LFG and kind of issued a challenge to Obafemi, sort of an open-ended challenge that, the guys in LFG are coming for NXT. And it just shows that, whereas 5 years ago, NXT 2.0 was supposed to be a pipeline, now LFG is the pipeline and NXT is a destination. And it's only a matter of time until a lot of these women's wrestlers in NXT get called up. And I assume they're going to populate that mid card division. The Lola Vices, the Jada Parkers. So in a way, it's not surprising. I think it demonstrates that things are changing in the WWE internally in the way that they move talent. But
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. I mean, I know Shotzi and Dakota Kai aren't exactly young, but they had a lot of upside. And to your point about Chance and Carter, they were the only, like you said, the only organically grown tag team in that division who operated as a unit. And it demonstrates their lack of care for that division. Um, Strowman, it's in a way, it's almost not shocking because they've had him lose to everyone he's been faced. Like, basically, it's like, okay, we want to build someone's star. We're gonna have them beat a former world champion, and that world champion is gonna be Braun Strowman because it's something to add to the resume. They beat a former Universal champion.
yeah.
Um,
He's also got like I mean I mean I don't know how old he is, but I mean if you watch him like moving around like in the ring and stuff, man, it looks like he's hurt. Like other people have pointed this out. Like his knees looks like they're really banged up. So in that way, I don't think it's too surprising.
he's a massive guy, and I remember in 2017, 18, 19, he was wrestling really often,
Yeah,
and I mean he's gotten more. His muscles are more defined, but he's always been a big dude. He's always been massive. Um, so yeah, there's definitely a lot
and
of wear
also
and tear in his body.
yeah, and also too. I mean, like you said, they're gonna have a bunch. They have so many men's and women's wrestlers in that company, both in NXT and the main roster. People coming in, all of the external free agents that they've signed. Uh, in a way, I guess this also isn't surprising, like you said, because Dakota Kai's been hurt a lot. Shotzi, she had a torn ACL, I think last year, the year before. Um, and Baszler really has never found her place in that company, like a steady presence.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, when they released Sonya Deville before, I mean, she was the one in that group, and it kind of left Shayna Baszler out in the cold, her and Zoe Stark. So, yeah, I think it for some of them, this is probably good because they can get out of there and they can really try to make their name somewhere else, whether that's AEW, whether that's TNA, somewhere else, and they can really do something. But yeah, it's unfortunate though.
On the NXT side, quite a few names were released. Luca Crucifino, Danny Palmer, Wolfgang, Eddie Thorpe, Riley Osborne, Oro Mensa, Jakar Jackson, Javier Bernal, Mark Coffey, Joe Coffey, and then Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade were all released. And like I said, with LFG, they have a pipeline to send people in NXT now. And obviously, NXT is also a destination for some free agents, like a Ricky Starks or a
Yeah,
Ricky Saints. Um, I don't want to get granular with this because I know we don't really watch NXT, but of
yeah.
these releases, which one shocked you the most?
Cora Jade, easily.
Yeah,
She's somebody that they obviously she's a big name in NXT for a while, and she's had a lot of injuries. She did a few things on TNA, and she's obviously good friends with CM Punk, and then Roxanne Perez. So that's a little shocking, but also too, it's not surprising in a way because she never really worked her way to the main roster. She's always kind of in NXT, and I've never seen her wrestle. I don't know if she's good or bad. I just know that she's been talked about a lot. So, you know, that one was surprising. But I mean, other than maybe Gigi Dolan, but since Mandy Rose got released all those years ago now, I mean, she's really just kind of floating around, not doing anything. So that's not surprising either. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Cora Jade and Gigi Dolan, to me, are the two that stick out. Jakar Jackson, definitely an up and coming talent. And I think, the Coffees and Wolfgang, that's like their whole faction. That's like they just released a whole faction pretty much.
yeah,
So yeah, but definitely Cora Jade and Gigi Dolan are two that shock me. Cora Jade especially because she's not a good wrestler, and I understand from the standpoint that she is not developed that you would need to release her, but she is a fan favorite and someone that the fans really enjoy and like watching. So and she's also like Gigi, a part of that vaunted 2021 class of NXT 2.0. A lot of which are now stars on the main roster, and they just never moved up.
yeah,
Never moved on. So, all this, I think, ties into the topic we had in mind to begin with. And that's, we talked about it privately when we watched WrestleMania 41. And I'll let you take point on this, Jordan, because it's something you mentioned to me, and it's a topic we broached. And I think maybe this is a good time as any to talk about it.
yeah. I think it's really coming off of that WrestleMania 41 that to me it feels like everybody thought was not a good show. It was or not a good event on both nights. Um, there were matches there. The build up to most of the matches was pretty bad, pretty erratic. Not a lot of thought put into it. You had the John Cena heel turn that was really sporadic. Really didn't make a whole lot of sense. The Rock really being an issue. Um, of coming in, doing this whole thing with the heel turn with Cena, with the whole "I want your soul" Cody thing. Cena aligns with them, and then we never see The Rock again, ever. He's mentioned like twice offhandedly, and then is never brought up again. And Travis Scott was the one who was interfered in the main event and didn't cost he cost Cody the title um, in a way, but the whole thing was bad, and it didn't work, and it's the fallout from that. I think with The Rock going on McAfee's show and maybe one other place, and basically putting a bunch of crap out there. It was all BS. Um, and then the response to Dave LaGreca, which we talked about, did not help. Really made it worse. Really just buried the company and buried wrestling pretty much. It all around was bad, and it's brought up the question of man, WWE has really been on a downward trend. Obviously when Triple H first took over in 2022, you had that honeymoon phase of the post Vince era, something that people had been wanting for so long for Vince to not be in charge anymore, and he wasn't. And Triple H took over, and things were great. And I think all that time, probably leading up to WrestleMania 40, um, was awesome. And then after that, it's been sporadic most of the year, and then that last build up to WrestleMania, man, was bad. Just a lot of things didn't make sense, and a lot of questionable decisions. And yeah, it leads to the question of is WWE in that downward trend? Is there a feud between Triple H and The Rock that's causing these problems? TKO, is that the issue? Uh, all of that encompassed, and you also have the fact that AEW has been on fire recently. They've had tremendous shows. The smaller venues look great. They have so many quality main event guys, young guys vying for the title, great young women vying for the title. And that's really kind of led me to question is who's hotter right now? Is WWE or AEW? Obviously WWE has the crowds, but does that, how long is that going to last? Is that really going to mean anything? So that's really the question that we're looking at today.
Yeah, I think going back to really before Triple H took over, the WWE was in a really terrible slump. It had been for a few years. The product had gotten really, really stale. And I think some of that was alleviated by the bloodline. but the rest of the show was not great. The WWE Championship was flip flopping back and forth between guys like McIntyre and Big E and Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar eventually. And um, like I said, while the Bloodline alleviated some of that, the product had been bad for years. And when Triple H took over, it was a shot in the arm that they needed. It, I think, from the gun, just from his track record with NXT, we expected great things. Great things were happening. And there was like a year and a half period there where things were really good. The creative was great. I think they handled the bloodline excellently leading up to WrestleMania 40. And when you crowned Cody Rhodes as champion after that match, it was like, oh, we're in an exciting new direction. Things are changing. There's a new champion who's here often and is willing to work. And 2024 was just after that was just not a great year for the WWE. The build to SummerSlam was anemic and not what we expected. We expected it to be Cody versus The Rock. The Rock couldn't be there because of other engagements. We got that horrible feud with the Bloodline 2.0 and Solo Sikoa trying to become a main event player and just was a vacuum of charisma, leading to Bad Blood and then to Survivor Series. And then we got to Mania season and we all thought, okay, every year there's a slump late in the year and we get to Mania season and things pick back up, right? And it never got hot. The Royal Rumble was, I think, for a lot of people, a huge letdown with Jey Uso winning. And while he was getting the reactions in the crowd because I think the kids love him,
Yeah.
the creative was never there. John Cena's heel turn was uninspiring. It felt soulless. It felt like it lacked purpose and meaning. And it's something that you don't want to be on a weekly podcast and start making claims without seeing the whole storyline unfold. I think that's unfair to the performers and to the company.
Yeah.
But in the end, it never became interesting.
No.
John Cena turned heel, joined The Rock. The Rock's nowhere to be found, like you said. And it culminated in a really lackluster main event on night two, which is the biggest event of the show, of both shows, night one and night two. So all in all, it was just vapid. And you have Braun Breaker flip-flopping with the Intercontinental title leading to WrestleMania, and he loses the title. And you think that's because he's going to move on to a main event player picture, and now he's in Seth Rollins' faction, essentially as his, one B to his 1A,
Yeah.
or maybe even his Robin to his Batman. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Sort of like an enforcer.
yeah, Gunter loses his title, and now he's wrestling Pat McAfee at Backlash.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I'm excited for Cena and Orton, but on the other hand, when's the last time those guys had a good match?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's become a really big issue for WWE that they're too reliant on old names and guys who are part timers. And you combine that with the fact that they also rely way too heavily on celebrities. And I know I've mentioned it a few times, but like Travis Scott being involved in the whole Cena heel turn thing into WrestleMania was horrible. He brought nothing to it. He legitimately injured your champion at the time, Cody Rhodes. And he has no size. He looks like I could beat up Travis Scott. Like that's like if I could beat up the guy, I'm not. He doesn't do anything for me. I'm not intimidated by him at all.
Mhm.
Like he's gonna go in there and do something to Cody Rhodes. Like give me a break. Logan Paul, we've talked about it numerous times. Uh, can't stand him. And well, we'll get to him in a second. I'll go to Cena Orton. Cena Orton, for nostalgia's sake, is awesome. For the kid in me to see John Cena and Randy Orton, that was the feud, really, for most of my childhood watching wrestling, my childhood into my adulthood. Uh, so yeah, I think those two on the mic are going to be great. I'm excited for the match. But this being for the WWE title, it it's tough. I don't like obviously when you watch Cena in that WrestleMania main event, he can't go anymore.
Mhm.
He just doesn't have it. He can have a match, but it's not going to be a great one. And I'm not, that's not his fault. He's old.
Yeah.
He's been doing this for so long now. And Randy, while he's in awesome shape, and I think he could have a really good match with with most people, him and Cena, I just don't know how that's gonna work. So for nostalgia's sake, it's awesome, but I think it feeds into the fact that they're relying too much on these older guys. Like you have John Cena, who's 48 and is the WWE champion, isn't going to be there all the time. He's up there in age. He's going to be around a little longer, but you go to like Roman Reigns. Now he's on another hiatus. CM Punk, he's getting up there in age. How much more are you gonna, is he gonna be able to do?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't understand why they continue to do this. Like Braun Breaker to me, like I'm excited for the faction with him and Seth and Paul Heyman because he's going to be in the main event picture. But I mean, Braun Breaker, I don't really think he needs a faction. Like
Yeah.
he can be great on his own. He could challenge for the WWE or World Heavyweight title on his own. So I think that might be a little bit of a missed opportunity there, because they really have not done a great job of building up anybody else, any young, talented wrestlers to go for these titles. And like you said, now Gunther is going to be wrestling Pat McAfee. Are you kidding me? I don't want to see that. That's horrible. So yeah, it's so directionless right now. They're just pinging off many different things, and then getting back to Logan Paul challenging Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, this guy is one of the biggest pieces of crap on the planet, and you're gonna have him wrestle Jey Uso. I mean, like, what are we doing? And I'm so like, it's making me really want to tune out because I don't want to watch it. Like, that's like that card, that backlash, that potential backlash card looks terrible. Why would anyone want to watch that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many directions I could go with what you were just talking about. Yeah, I mean, in terms of
There's a
Logan
lot.
Paul and Jey Uso, I don't want to see that. I barely want to see Jey Uso defend his title, let alone the fact I don't want to watch him defend it against Logan Paul. And there's a good chance he might lose the title to Logan Paul because obviously they want to strap the rocket to Logan. So, which I don't think he will, but I mean, it's possible, which is really sad. A sad reflection of the company and where it's at.
Yeah.
Pat McAfee versus Gunter. Sorry, but that's inexcusable. This is a former world heavyweight champion, and now his next match is going to be against an announcer. And I understand Pat McAfee's wrestled before. His relationship with the WWE began in the ring, but he's not a wrestler.
No.
He's a guy who had a lot of time to practice for one match, and then he did it again, and against Baron Corbin. I don't care. I don't want to see Pat McAfee wrestle Gunter. Gunter is one of the greatest wrestlers alive.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And to your point about Randy Orton and John Cena, and I think this is a great way to segue into AEW, but if you're trying to convince to me right now that John Cena is a better wrestler than Randy Orton, currently, I'm not talking about all time, currently, right now, that's the most disingenuous argument you can make because he's not better in the ring, he doesn't look better, and he's not there more often. So what point what boxes he check that Randy Orton does not right now? Are they both legends? Yes. Is Randy in better shape? Yes. Is Randy better in the ring? Yes. Is Randy there more often? Yes. Right now, honestly, I'd even say Randy's better on the microphone because Cena's not the same guy he was 5 years ago. He doesn't sound the same on the microphone. Him being a heel rings false. I don't believe it. I don't care to see him as a heel. It's just all over the place. Every aspect of him right now is off base. I don't who is this targeted to? Who wants to see him be a heel? Who thinks he's doing a good job as a heel?
I mean, the crowds have responded to it. I mean, I can't
Not
deny.
not really. They're cheering him half the time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that kind of goes into a whole other argument of there's really no heels anymore. Like people like heels. Then this is something that we thought might become an issue because people have wanted this heel turn for so long that they're happy he's doing it now. And he's not the whole Super Cena smiling white meat baby face anymore. Now he's got that edge that people have wanted him to have for so long. So they're happy to see it and they're cheering it. And
Are they doing that because they're smart marks or because they just want to cheer John Cena before he retires?
I mean, I think it's a combination of both.
I think it's that people don't want to. They don't want to boo him, but he's not going to be around much longer. How
Uh,
much money are these fans paying to see him one last time? They don't want to boo him.
Yeah, yeah. No, I when it first happened, I was excited because of the potential of it. But having watched it from that point all the way through Mania and everything, I don't really want to see it anymore. I don't want to be negative about everything, but yeah, like I don't want to boo Cena on his retirement tour. Like who wants to boo anybody on their retirement tour, especially somebody as legendary as John Cena?
To me, they had an opportunity to turn him heel in the same way that The Rock turned heel last year. To come in, to flex his muscles, to make things happen that shouldn't otherwise happen, to not be there full time, and to disrespect the fan, not just disrespect the fans, but to insult their intelligence, like The Rock did last year, and saying, "I'm going to come. I deserve this main event because I'm The Rock." They could have done that in the same way, and it would have worked. And they chose to do this dramatic heel turn, so people on ESPN can say, "Wow, breaking news: John Cena turns heel." That's not a storyline. That's a headline.
Yeah,
And you've talked about that ad nauseum. That the wrestling business has pulled the curtain back way too much, where the fact that he turns heel is the story. And it's not that he is upset or has any kind of actual warranted complaints,
yeah,
frustrations. Everything he's saying was applicable 10 years ago, not now. So
mhm.
yeah, and I just it's still it rings false. He should have just turned babyface after WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, it. He looks like a guy who's acting like a bad guy. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't. This would have worked unbelievably well 10 years ago, like you said. But yeah, he hasn't gotten booed like that in so long, and it's got so many issues that it makes me wonder, makes myself and a bunch of other people who've talked about this. Is this a Triple H and Rock feuding for control type of thing? Is this The Rock coming in and blowing up plans that Triple H has had to do things because The Rock's on the board, he's got TKO on his side, and he can do whatever he wants? Because that's what this feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like because like you said before with NXT and Triple H, we know he can book things well.
Yeah.
Does great things, has great ideas. Whatever you think about him as a person, he's good at booking. We've seen him do it. So whenever we get to these big events and The Rock suddenly shows back up and everything gets thrown in disarray, I can't imagine that's Triple H just going along with everything. I can't imagine that he's wanting to do that. So I don't know if that's what's causing this, and it's like Triple H is helpless to, he's just trying to figure like make chicken salad out of chicken, what that The Rock leaves him with. But whatever it is, man, it's not working, and it's causing all these problems that are really, weighing the company down. And I know the audience is still big, and they still have all these things going on, but eventually that stuff can really catch up with you, and it can catch up quick. And
Yeah.
we've seen it happen where the crowds can dissipate really fast if things aren't going well.
Yeah. I mean, I seriously, if they don't turn, listen, we've seen these SummerSlam ticket prices. Center of the front row, $40,000.
Yeah, that's another thing with the ticket prices.
They there's going to come a time where if the booking doesn't turn around and the tickets aren't reasonable, and you're not taking the road show on the road anymore, where people are going because it's too expensive. Yeah, people are going to lose interest. They're not going to want to keep tuning in. And the ratings, listen, I mean, in terms of, we're talking about what's hotter right now, and that's really an interesting term in this conversation, because AEW will never supersede WWE in terms of business. Um, the WWE is a conglomerate that owns the market share because they are the oldest company. A lot of people don't even know what pro wrestling is. They just call wrestling WWE.
Yeah,
That goes to show the dominance that they have over the business. But in terms of the product, is one company's product better than the other? That's what we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about. The WWE still did good numbers in 2017. That doesn't mean it was good. That doesn't mean there weren't people who didn't want to watch it anymore because it was bad.
yeah.
Both those
That
things
led
are
to,
true.
sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I was just saying that led to the creation of AEW because it was so bad.
Yeah. And all it does is I think galvanize fans to go check out AEW. I think that will, if things don't turn around, that's inevitably what will happen. But I don't think it's ever going to get to a point where AEW is on the same level as the WWE in terms of business. I don't think that's Tony Khan's goal, actually. I mean, he might say things like that, but I can't imagine that is something that they realistically imagine will happen. But going across the aisle, because I think AEW was in a very similar situation anywhere from 6 months to 2 years ago, right? I think they had a very good beginning, and Tony Khan was handed this great story with the Elite in his lap. And I think when that ran its course and Adam Page won the championship, a lot of people started to feel like he didn't know what to do after that because he put the title on, he kind of panicked and put the title on Punk, and then it all imploded. And
Yeah.
I think the company was directionless for a long time. And as recent as January, we were talking about, God, this company's too old. You have Jeff Jarrett, Adam Copeland, Chris Jericho. It just seemed like they were highlighting the wrong guys. And I think since February, things have turned around drastically, dramatically. Every week, the programs are good. The pay-per-views have been great. They've announced big shows. We're building towards All In. Um, they've just really been white hot. Um, I want to throw this out there because I was thinking about this earlier this week. Um, I think since February, AEW has really succeeded in highlighting this under 35 group of guys: Swerve Strickland, MJF, Will Ospreay, Hangman Adam Page, Konosuke Takeshita, Jay White, and I would throw Darby Allin in there, although he's been absent from the programming. But Darby Allin's always been a constant force in that company.
Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher's, yeah, absolutely. Kyle Fletcher's, yeah, is the other one. They've been doing a great job of highlighting this group of guys, and some of them currently are vying for contention in the Owen Hart Cup. Swerve Strickland just recently had a match against John Moxley for the championship. Here's where I want to throw this out there to you. Since John Moxley won the title, he's kept it in a briefcase, and we have not seen the physical belt for, I guess now we're in May, so 7 months now since October of last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have questioned that decision. And I want to throw this out there to you because I was thinking a lot about this. I have to imagine that was an intentional decision by either John Moxley or Tony Khan, right? Someone pitched this idea that we're going to have the title be kept in a briefcase so no one can see it. And while John Moxley says he's the champion quite often, unless you have that title, which symbolically represents being a world champion, a lot of people are looking at the promotion right now as if they don't really have a world champion because no one's holding the belt.
Yeah.
And it's allowed them to build the future champions. It's allowed them to highlight the guys who are vying for that title because it's almost as if right now no one has it. No one has the belt around their waist. And unless you have the belt around your waist, you're not really seen as a champion. You're just a guy calling yourself the champion. And at some point in time, someone's going to beat him for that belt. And it's going to look like all of a sudden, for the first time since October, since Bryan Danielson, there's a champion in this company. And it's allowed them in that vacuum of without having a champion, someone holding the title physically. Because a lot of us say I know in WWE they don't like to call it a belt because the belt's something you hold your pants up with, right? It's a championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the belt is symbolic of the championship. If you don't have the belt and you're saying you're the champion, a lot of people aren't going to know one from the other.
Yeah.
You just look like another guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this has been a really smart decision. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know what their intent was in hiding the title, but if this was it, I think this was really smart because now you have a group of guys who this company for the next 5 to 10 years are going to be building. These are the guys who are going to pass this title around. Now, maybe Kenny might get it again. Maybe Okada might get it at some point. But I think these are the 8 guys who are going to be holding this title and passing it back and forth as long as they stay with the company.
Yeah, I mean it's a great point, and I think in conjunction with that, you also have the growing the the overall dissatisfaction with Moxley as champion, combined with that, I think will is making whoever beats him for the title, it's going to be a huge moment, and it's going to be a really good jumping off point to really continuing this upward trend that they're on. And I think, and I don't know if this was the point where Tony Khan decided to do this, if this is where he was looking at, but I think when they had talked about Jeff Jarrett potentially winning the title and like the collective in the building and online reaction to that was so just what the heck is going on that he's like, okay, you know what, we need to make a change here.
Yeah.
And from then on, you really saw the emphasis put on all the guys that you just mentioned and how those guys are the future. They're going to be the ones vying for this title for years to come, um, which has been great. And yeah, that moment when we get to see the title again and someone is physically holding it, it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be a great. It's going to be a great reset um, for it. And I think, yeah, like whether it was intentional or not for them to hide the title, it'll be a great reset point. It'll be a great jump off to having all of these guys in that title picture for years to come.
Yeah, and you look at the people who are holding titles, physical titles right now. The mid card men's titles, Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, and Adam Cole, are three great champions. Three great wrestlers to hold titles, not just in terms of their presence and their stature and their name, but in their ability. Adam Cole's a great TNT champion. Okada, while he doesn't wrestle as often or seriously as we would like him to, is a great Continental champion. And Kenny Omega is arguably the face of this company, in the same vein that Roman Reigns is or Seth Rollins is of the WWE. On the women's side, you have Toni Storm, who is, I think, arguably, and maybe we would both agree, the best women's wrestler alive right now. And then you have Mercedes Moné as a TBS champion, who is another woman who's arguably the best women's wrestler alive. So across the board, you have great champions. The tag team titles held by the Hurt Syndicate, the trios titles held by the Ops. Like, when's the last time they had a crop of champions this great?
Yeah, it's
Maybe
been a
never.
long time. Yeah, it's been a long time, if ever. And I think to that point, you look at all of those titles, and we kind of look at how the international title was kind of a joke for a while. The tag team titles have really gone downhill. The TNT Championship was non-existent, and they've really built those back up. Whereas conversely, you look at WWE and their champions. You have a 48-year-old John Cena as the WWE champion. You have Jey Uso has been a tag team champion most of his career as the World Heavyweight Championship, a new title that had kind of been built up pretty good, but now is on a downward trend. You have the Intercontinental champions, Dominic Mysterio. You know, the tag team championships, which really don't mean anything because we didn't really even see them for months on end, or the New Day, who haven't done anything notable since they turned heel. And the other tag team champions didn't even get a spot on WrestleMania, but they had a really good uh, ladder match the other night on SmackDown, which I don't know why you couldn't have had that on WrestleMania, but that's different discussion. And then yeah, like the women's champions are Tiffany Stratton and Io Sky, which are great, but just the way that the champions are in both companies, I think highlights this where the companies are as far as the booking decisions and the wrestlers that they've decided to push. And AEW has definitely made the smart decision to push the younger, uh, more talented, hungrier wrestlers, as opposed to WWE's decision to push older wrestlers, part timers, wrestlers who are not as great in the ring. All of those things together, and I think that really speaks to where both companies are. Maybe not in the attendance, but like you said, as a company, as the booking, as the overall direction they are going forward, I think AEW's future is a lot brighter.
Well, and listen, it's impossible to say whether or not these max numbers are accurate because the only people that know that are, even Tony Khan acts like he doesn't really know totally. It's really just Max itself. But, Tony Khan confirmed a report that he's hearing that it's an average of 500,000 people watching on Max. And they say that AEW competes with hockey on Max in terms of its viewership. I mean, that's how successful it's been. And the show is doing an average of anywhere from 550 to 700,000 people a week on television.
Yeah,
Collision last weekend had 700,000 people watch it on average, and obviously it was a big number from the lead in. There was the NBA, but the show. I mean, if we're to believe those max numbers, obviously the shows are doing better. The viewership is higher than it's been in a long time.
Yeah.
So they are on an upward trend, and they have had the hot hand. And you know, I I review Dynamite in the pay per views for the Augusta Free Press, and I called Revolution maybe the best pay per view I've ever seen. I think we both walked away from that show thinking that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Dynasty was really good. I'm not going to say it was necessarily great, but it was really good. And this Double or Nothing looks stacked so far. I mean, Mercedes Moné versus Jamie Hayter, Hangman versus Will Ospreay. I'm sure we'll have an Anarchy in the Arena match somewhere. That show is going to be awesome. It's going to be, and then all that leads into All In, which is the WrestleMania of AEW, the biggest show they have on the calendar year.
Yeah.
You also have Grand Slam Mexico between Double or Nothing and All In, and then after that you have Forbidden Door in London at the O2.
Yeah.
They just, as opposed to WWE, where we're not excited for Backlash, let alone I'm worried about their what it's going to look like come SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Money in the Bank. I'm scared who's going to win Money in the Bank. I'm scared what's going to happen at SummerSlam. I'm not looking forward to anything.
Yeah.
Whereas in AEW, I'm really excited for the future, especially if that title leaves Mox's hands and Osprey or Hangman wins it. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you look at all of that, and uh, you know, I'll look at the WWE side of this. You know, you heard reports like last month that the Raw and Netflix numbers were down from where they were, and they had been kind of going down. Um, and then yeah, you look at the PLEs. Obviously, you're working with two different things because you're not paying whatever $50, $60 for a pay per view on like you are in AEW. And you're paying what $7.99 to watch a pay per view on Peacock for WWE, and it kind of shows because a lot of those shows have been really bad.
Yeah.
And like we always talked about WrestleMania and how that wasn't very good except for a few matches. The Elimination Chamber wasn't really great to the point where The Rock even said the attendance, the numbers weren't looking great. That's why he decided to be on the show. Um, so you can take that for what you will, but to me it looks like two companies going in different directions. Now, obviously, the gap is a lot bigger for between like the attendance and the numbers and the money. And that at the end of the day, that's what everybody's going to point to is like, well, you're saying that AEW is higher than WWE, but WWE is selling out these arenas and doing all this. And it's like we said, that doesn't mean the shows are good.
Yeah.
That just means they've had a monopoly on wrestling for so long that they're synonymous with it. But you give things enough time, it can change. And if AEW keeps going on this great trend where they're going to these different arenas and they're having these great pay-per-views and these great shows and these great matches, and WWE's just doing all this crap with celebrities, I mean, eventually he's gonna be done.
Yeah.
Roman's there less and less. Punk's not gonna be around forever. Randy's eventually gonna retire. Seth's not gonna be around forever. He's had a lot of injuries. At the end of the day, who are the people who are gonna be the stars of that company for the future? That they really don't have any outside of Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
Like Jey Uso. Jey Uso's not young. He's not a young up and comer. He's been in the company for a long time. So, and I mean, Gunter, you think is going to be around for a while, but the way he's being treated, would he want to stay? I don't know. So things are looking like they're going great for WWE right now, but that can all change very quickly. And the allure of the WWE brand is only good enough if you have the stars, and they're not going to have them forever.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the under 35 guys who've not yet hit their apex, AEW overwhelmingly has the better bullpen right now. And listen, I mean, obviously some of those guys can leave. MJF's contract's not going to last forever. I mean, I don't think Osprey or Hangman would leave, but Swerve Strickland he could leave. I mean, I don't know. Obviously there's the ability for free agency moves there, but as things stand, MJF, Will Ospreay, Hangman, Swerve Strickland, Kyle Fletcher, Konosuke Takeshita, Darby Allin, even guys like Hook, Jay White, obviously. I mean, you're telling me Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Braun Breaker are as good at wrestling as those guys? Maybe Braun, but I don't know. I just disagree. Um, So, anyways, yeah, I totally agree with you. The gap may seem insurmountable, and it might be because, like you said, the WWE is a monopoly that's synonymous with wrestling at this point. But in terms of what's more enjoyable to watch, I overwhelmingly to me AEW has become more enjoyable, and that could change. This is not a company who has been able to hold on to strong leads in that regard, but right now I'm really enjoying it. I don't foresee it getting drastically worse anytime soon. I think they're poised to continue this hot streak that they're on. Um, Anything else you'd like to add to this conversation, Jordan?
Um, I mean, I would just point out that, like we said, the AEW and what they've done with the wrestlers they have is important because they are wrestlers. They are people who are wrestling full time, who take this seriously. And yeah, do they do some hokey things from time to time? Sure. But at the end of the day, they've done a lot better at being serious and having great matches. And WWE is more interested in having celebrities wrestling for world titles. So that to me really tells you all you need to know about their priorities. And if that continues, my interest in them is going to be less and less because I've been a WWE guy for a long time. And when AEW started, I wasn't really watching it. I got into it later. I got into it kind of in the down years. So this is really the first time I've really seen AEW and I've really enjoyed it to the point where I've enjoyed it more than WWE. And I'm not saying that everything WWE is doing is bad because I know we just spent all this time crapping on WWE. I hope they get their stuff together, and I hope the celebrity stuff really quiets down. And if they do that, then I think they have the potential to get back on course. But the trend they're going on right now is not good, and if it continues, man, my interest is gonna seriously flip to AEW more than WWE.
We had a few questions last week that we'd love to touch. We'd love to answer. And if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask us, you'd like us to answer next week, feel free to leave them in the comments. We would be happy to not only answer them, but then send you a link with the timestamp where we answer the question directly. So, without further ado, on Reddit, Vicious Buddha 09 asks, how do you feel AAA will be treated now that it's a WWE conquest? Uh, Jordan, I'll let you take this one, buddy.
Well, I think we touched on this a little bit when you had uh, El Grande Americano beating Ray Phoenix at WrestleMania, like the same day this got announced.
Yeah.
And I think it was part of my rant that I went on about most of that show. But I don't think it will be treated very well. Um, at the end of the day, WWE is WWE, and while they have so many great Mexican wrestlers that you would think that this would be great and that they would be used properly, you just had a fake luchador beating a real luchador that they just brought into the company. So it doesn't give me great hope that they'll do anything significant with it. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But for me, again, I don't want to keep going. I'm back to this point, but AEW's done a lot better job of using the luchadors and kind of making them look pretty good than WWE has. To the point where I can't believe that AEW was the first ones to have a show in Mexico than WWE was. When you have one of the greatest luchadors of all time in Rey Mysterio,
Hmm.
so I have hope, but I don't have a ton of faith in WWE right now to use AAA well.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like AAA is going to be working with NXT, which immediately puts the wrestlers of AAA on a pedestal that's not very high. Um, I wouldn't be shocked at all if within a few years this is AAA is turned into NXT Mexico, which I know
Yeah,
is kind of a meme, but I'm happy they let go of Alberto Del Rio or Alberto Del Patron or whatever he's going by now. He
yeah,
was,
man, that was like instantaneous.
yeah, yeah,
That was like as soon as it was announced, it was like right afterwards, like, oh, Alberto Del Patron or whatever is no longer with AAA.
yeah, yeah. That's probably a good thing considering the what he's been accused of doing. But and what he's done in the past, well, we know he's done in the past. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's enormous potential here because Rey Mysterio is a legend of AAA, and the the success Triple Mania has had in the past for AAA. But I don't know if all your relationships are going to be predicated on that they're just working with NXT. That's not great. And I guess Joe Hendry being at WrestleMania was like a watershed moment
Yeah.
and maybe a step in the right direction. But since then, he's just been working with NXT guys.
Yeah. Also, too, he got squashed at WrestleMania.
Yeah, he got beat. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
The TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
yeah, got beaten pretty bad by Randy Orton. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think AAA will be treated well. To answer your question,
No.
Vicious Buddha '09. But moving on to Spaghetti Monster. With Billy Corgan restarting the territories in the NWA, do you think it will change wrestling any? Um, the NWA territory system, historically speaking, was a way for regional promotions to have a nationally governing body of wrestling that could protect them and help them bring business in when they needed it. And also a chance for their local champion, their the region's best wrestler, to wrestle the world's champion. Um, and it worked back in those days because wrestling was a regional business. It was not something that had a lot of national power. Different territories across the country succeeded in different ways, and they would ebb and flow depending on a lot of things: the economy, the people wrestling in the territories, who was in charge of creative. In today's world, what the territories really are is the NWA working with a variety of independent promotions, which isn't bad. That's not a bad thing in and of itself. Um, but what power does the NWA brand have now in regards to its ability to generate business for these independent promotions? I don't know. I don't. I mean, I don't think it's a lot because I think the NWA is largely a dead brand at this point. Um, and I don't think they've had a really great champion in the NWA since Nick Aldis, probably since he was the champion. I don't. EC3 and Tom Latimer have not been able to generate the same level of interest, and Tyrus damn sure wasn't able to. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think Billy Corgan has largely. I think he's from his own ego. I think he's really hurt the NWA. It also doesn't help that they used to have working relationships with the Ring of Honor in New Japan, and for a while even AEW, and those have dissipated. I think a lot of his comments about the NWA style being superior has really hurt him a lot. Um, but it's the blueprint that the WWE ID system has used, where WWE is working with these independent promotions, sort of sponsoring guys in a way and lending their credibility to these promotions. The difference is that the WWE has some level of credibility, and the NWA does not anymore. Um, I mean, I don't know how plugged in you are to this, but what are your thoughts, if you have any?
I mean, I think you said it well. I think the idea is a really good one. And like you said, with WWE ID, they've kind of done that. But yeah, I think it's a good idea, but it's a bad company to do it with because of all the reasons you just listed. If they had still had that recognition, if they still had those relationships with New Japan and Ring of Honor and AEW and things like that, I think this would be a great thing because it would be a way for lesser known guys to be able to potentially be noticed by some of these other big companies that are not WWE affiliated. Um, but yeah, I think all of the damage that Billy Corgan's done to the NWA, I think is going to really limit it. Um, but in the same point, if maybe things will change up. I think in the world we live in today with the internet, social media, and the way people can self promote, I think it could, you could really make something out of it. And at least, if you say you're wrestling for the NWA, yeah, it doesn't have the name recognition that it once did. But that's still something. It's not nothing.
Yes.
Um, so it's a good idea. I like the concept. But yeah, I think the NWA brand is not what it once was, so it'd be a little tough to use it properly.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not nothing. Like the NWA has some really talented wrestlers. I have Kenzie Page, Kerry Morton. I mean, EC3 is a talented guy, regardless of what you think about him as a person and the headspace he's in at all times. Yeah, they have some talented people, and it's like I said, like you said, it's not just an independent promotion. It is still the NWA. It's an organization. It's, I presume, a contract. It's steady work. And if they can help independent promotions, by all means, I think that's a great thing. Independent wrestling is the backbone of wrestling. It's the pipeline for wrestlers to become stars. You have to start somewhere. And not everyone's a former D1 athlete or an Instagram model who can get a contract with the WWE. So, um, our last two questions come from a commenter on YouTube, and I don't know how to pronounce their username, but their picture says Super Saiyan 2 Batman, which I'm a Dragon Ball Z fan, so I know what SSJ2 means. Uh, he asked two questions. The first is something that I've seen floating around on Reddit, which is the seven wrestlers theory. The first is the wrestler that made you fall in love with wrestling. The second is your favorite or your newest favorite wrestler. The third is the wrestler that always makes you smile. Four is your comfort wrestler. Five is the one you miss the most. Six is the one you'd protect with your whole life. And seven is the one you're rooting for the most. I know that's a lot to throw at you all at once, but
Yeah.
let's start with one. The wrestler that made you fall in love with wrestling.
Uh, it's probably John Cena.
Mm,
I mean, when I really started to pay attention and watch it, he was not the top guy, but he was pretty like he was getting up there. And he was doing some cool stuff. He had the Doctor of Thugonomics thing, which was cool, and then eventually it turned into what it did. But that's probably what I would say got my interest in it because he was my favorite wrestler when I was a kid.
for me, it'd have to be The Undertaker. Um, Closely followed by, and I regret having to admit this, but probably closely followed by Hulk Hogan. Uh, be the under
Back then, dude, he was like, I mean, he was getting some massive pops back then. So
Dude, Hulk Hogan when we were we're late '90s, early 2000s. Back then it was like Michael Jordan coming back to the Wizards.
yeah,
Hulk
yeah,
Hogan was a big deal.
when he came back, uh, when he first with the NWO, and then after the Mania match with The Rock, went back to being Hulk Hogan. I mean, that dude was the most popular wrestler in the company.
Yeah,
Like even I would say close or more than Austin because Austin was kind of on a downward trend at that point. So I mean, he was up there. So
yeah,
I mean, he's obviously fallen so far from that point now, but
yeah.
but
Things have
back
changed a
then,
lot.
yeah, back then it was not a bad thing to like Hulk Hogan.
I had someone, I don't remember who, but someone like in my personal life was like asking about wrestling, and they were like, "I used to really love Hulk Hogan's reality show," and I was like,
That
"That's crazy," but
that's
okay.
interesting.
Um, your newest favorite wrestler, Jordan?
Oh man, mm, it's in, for me it's between two guys. It's either Braun Breaker and Will Ospreay. I'm obviously Braun being in WWE the next big thing pretty much. Um, but I think once I started watching AEW and I started watching New Japan a lot more, um, Will Ospreay's really up there for me. Just as far as I mean, God, man, every time he goes out there, he has a great match
Yeah.
against anybody. Um, and he loves Assassin's Creed, which is great because that's one of my favorite video games. So I like that a lot.
For me, it's got to be the Switchblade, Jay White.
It's a good one.
I I breathe with the Switchblade. I I long for the day where he is the AEW World Champion because there's something about the way he talks, not his accent, but the way he delivers a promo that I love. I love how he wrestles in the ring. He's a good babyface, but a really great heel. I love Jay White a lot,
Yeah,
and I've really just started to love him over the last few years. I wasn't a big fan of him in New Japan. I recognize why they pushed him so heavily. I recognize his talent, but since he arrived in AEW, I've really become a big fan of his.
yeah.
Uh, So I guess you can say maybe in that regard, I'm a little late to the party, but the one that always makes you smile, Jordan.
Rhea Ripley.
That's crazy. Wild. Man, that's wild. Okay.
Oh, oh
Uh,
God. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Zack Sabre Jr. because I
All
love his
right.
promo, and I love how he wrestles.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one.
I know we're going in different directions there, but uh,
Yeah.
four, your comfort wrestler.
Comfort wrestler. I'm guessing that means like whenever I watch them, I'm going to enjoy the match.
Yeah, I guess
Thing.
like a comfort show almost. I guess the same thing. Like you can just turn it on and it's something you can, you know, you're always
Yeah.
gonna enjoy.
Um, probably, probably, probably Will Ospreay. I would guess.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what I said before, like he's every time I watch him, I enjoy the match. So I think that's probably my comfort wrestler.
Yeah, probably Osprey for me. Maybe when I was younger, I guess it would be Kurt Angle, but yeah, I guess it's probably Osprey. Maybe I mean I love everything MJF does, but yeah, probably Osprey for me too.
Yeah,
I mean, we talked about this after Revolution. How is he not your world champion when every time he's on a show he delivers the best match?
yeah, and he wrestles every show.
Yeah. Um, Number five, the one you missed the most. Is this I guess either because they retired or because they're not with us anymore.
I'm assuming it's like people they don't wrestle anymore.
Yeah.
Um, miss the most. Damn, that's tough, man. I think for me, I'm gonna say Eddie Guerrero because I feel like man, if he were, you know, if he were still around, wrestling, God, if his health had been better and his life had been better, I mean, I God, he would be so fun to watch. I mean, he could have had some great matches, some great rivalries. And you look at how beloved he is now, and like when they played his entrance music at WrestleMania 39, I mean, the crowd went crazy. Um, so I think I miss Eddie a lot because he just had everything. He had the charisma, he had the it factor. He was a tremendous wrestler. All of those things together, man. If he were still around, I think that would be great. So I think he's probably the one I miss.
Eddie's great. Because Eddie was just hitting a stride really when he
Yeah.
fortunately passed away. He had a lot of room to win more titles at that, especially at that time. Against him and versus Cena would have been amazing.
Oh yeah.
Um, I know Rob Van Dam still wrestles,
Okay.
but I've always loved RVD. And the other guy I guess is Shawn Michaels,
For like
which
missing prime version.
yeah, I mean, because this is tough because they retired. Well, I don't want Undertaker to get back in the ring. I don't want Sting to get back in the ring.
No,
He's
I think it's saying
60.
like it's saying like I miss like you can see if they're retired, that's like I miss the prime version of them.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I would That's what I think. That's what the question means. Like if I would want to have Shawn Michaels in his prime, RVD in his prime, Undertaker in his prime, going right now.
The answer would be Sting. I wish Sting was in his prime right now.
Yeah, Sting too. That would be
Actually, that's my only answer. Scratch
yeah,
RVD and Shawn. It's
yeah,
Sting.
yeah. That's a good one.
Six, the one you protect with your whole life.
Oh boy, protect with my whole life. Gosh, I don't even really know how to answer that one. 'Cause I'm guessing that means that it would be your favorite wrestler, or is it like just somebody who I don't? I'm kind of at a loss how to answer that.
Let's say you would run down to the ring and take a Tiger Driver for them.
Oh shoot. Um,
91, not 98. I mean, you might break your neck.
yeah, I was about to say, I'm not gonna risk. I guess risking my life. That would be what that means. Oh hell, I don't know. I don't want to keep saying Osprey, but like
Is Rhea Ripley.
in the yeah, yeah, I'll go with Rhea. Ripley. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't, because I'm guessing that would mean your favorite. So it would probably be it'd be like Osprey or Ripley or somebody who's my favorite wrestler. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess CM Punk. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's kind of a tough question to answer because I'm guessing that means your favorite, which we've kind of already said a few times.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it'd be CM Punk. I don't.
Unless it's somebody who's just like they're like a really nice person, and
Yeah.
you don't want to see them get hurt because they're just like a genuinely good person. Maybe.
Well, in that case, I probably shouldn't pick CM Punk then.
No.
I mean, I don't know. I really love FTR a lot. I think they're too. I don't know. Maybe Cash isn't such a good guy, but I think Dax is a good
Yeah, yeah.
guy. I don't know.
I
I think
think we answered that for the most part. It wasn't the
yeah,
most graceful of answers, but
the one you're rooting for the most. This is easier to answer.
yeah, yeah. I'm I would I'm gonna say I would say Braun just
Mhm.
because I think he's got that potential.
Yeah,
And I really want to see him in the main event picture against some of the top stars in the company because I think he could be the biggest thing in the company if he's used right. Um, so I'd probably say Braun or maybe like Hangman Page
yeah,
because I think people were down on him pretty hard after the whole CM Punk thing, and which he was not. I think there was a lot of blame to go around there, and I think he had some of it. But I think he's really good. He's got all the ability in the world. He's got pretty much everything you want in a great wrestler. So I would say probably him and Braun.
yeah. For me, it's Hangman. For me, it's definitely Hangman. I want to see Hangman succeed as much as possible. I think he's a guy of unquestionable character, and a fellow Virginian, someone who he is the protagonist of AEW wholeheartedly. Um, the second question that Super Saiyan 2 Batman asks us is Dream singles match and Dream tag team match. Their answer was Shawn Michaels versus Bryan Danielson and the Rockers versus the Briscoes, which would be two incredible. Let me just
Yeah,
those would be two incredible matches.
yeah,
Uh,
that would be. Oh my gosh.
yeah, imagine them giving Martin Jannetty the J Driller.
Oh man,
Uh,
that would be crazy. Dream singles. Probably AJ and Will Ospreay. God,
wow.
man, I want to see that match. I don't think we'll probably ever see it, but man, that would be a banger match.
You know they wrestled when Osprey was a kid, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, like,
Oh,
now,
Prime Osprey. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, even though AJ's not in his prime anymore, God, that'd still be a great match.
Well, no, imagine if it's Prime AJ versus current Osprey.
Yeah, yeah, I guess I could say, yeah,
Yeah,
prime AJ, prime Will Ospreay. God, that'd be great. Dream tag team match. Hmm, that one's a little tougher. I don't know. Maybe like FTR versus the Brainbusters, maybe. I think, that the picture you've got above your head, those two.
that'd be
I think
pretty great.
that'd be a classic hard hitting tag team match. I mean, there's so many ones you could pick from, but that one just sprung to mind just because I'm looking right at them.
Yeah. Um, Dream singles match. I had the opportunity to obviously look at these questions sooner than Jordan did, so I've had some time to think about this. So for Dream singles, it would be Flair versus Bryan Danielson, best two out of three falls, and
Okay.
a championship for sure. Would be
That'd be good.
um the Dream tag team match would be FTR versus the Golden Lovers, Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega. And I don't mean when they were like a full time tag team. I mean like 2018 when they got back together, both in their prime as heavyweights. Yeah, be that. Ibushi and
Yeah,
Omega versus FTR would be crazy. You could
that'd
do
be
best two out of three falls. You got straight, one fall match, whatever it is. But
yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great. I think another one might be kind of cool would be like the Briscoes versus the Hardys in like a ladder match.
Oh God, dude, yeah, that.
That
Yeah.
would be
Uh,
yeah, that'd be unbelievable, man.
Imagine FTR versus the Briscoes versus the Hardys TLC.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, this is a fun question. We could sit here all day and come up with
Oh
answers.
my gosh. I mean, the
So
the history of yeah. I mean, you could put old versus new, somewhat old versus new. I mean, you could have so many different combinations.
I mean,
Just picking ones.
Okada versus Samoa Joe, like Prime versus Prime, would, I mean, be amazing. Vader
Yeah,
versus Samoa Joe would be awesome.
yeah, it'd be. I don't even know. Okada and anybody really.
Okada versus Shawn Michaels. Okada versus Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could. Yeah, I mean, you could take this different direction. Kenny Omega versus Shawn
Kurt
Michaels.
Angle,
Kurt Angle for
Kenny versus Kurt.
Kenny versus Kurt. Yeah, I mean, you could
I
go.
think I think Kurt even said that was the one he regrets not being able to wrestle was Kenny Omega, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had an opportunity in 2021 and he didn't take it, and he said he regretted it a lot. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, there's a lot of answers here, but I'll go Rick versus Brian Danielson. I
Yeah.
think that match would be crazy. Which we MJF versus Danielson's close. That's probably not far off from what it would really look like. But
Yeah.
anyways, all right. Well, that does it for this week's episode of Petree's Pit. Like I said, if you have any comments about what we talked about today, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about whether or not AEW is hotter right now than the WWE is. If we're off base, if we're being too complimentary of AEW or too negative towards the WWE. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer just about wrestling in general, please leave us some comments. We would love to answer your questions next week on the show. But 30 episodes down, Jordan, a lot more to go. We love doing this. We thank you guys for your support.
Yeah.
Talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.